Joining me now is former White House Chief of Staff and Senior Advisor at Bondi Partners, Mick Mulvaney. Mick, thanks for joining me. Let's start with one of the biggest stories of the week, and that's President Trump signing the release of the Epstein files. Mick, I've spoken about his change of heart on the Epstein files, but why do you think he finally supported the release?
I don't think he had much choice, Caroline. Donald Trump doesn't usually get on the wrong side of 80% issues. It's one of the reasons that he decided to go ahead and encourage Republicans to vote for the bill that came out of the House that resulted in this piece of legislation being on his desk. So I think he saw which way the wind is blowing, and he decided to go ahead and get in front of it. It's been a stunning turn of events. 24, 48 hours maximum between the time that he was against signing this bill to the time that he actually signed it. So it's not the end of the discussion. As you know, they'll be very curious to see in the next 30 days, as the legislation requires, what exactly the Department of Justice will or will not put out.
Well, there is a 30-day deadline for the department to release the documents. They can, I guess, redact some of it depending on victims and active investigations, but there seems to be such a build-up to this. Do you think there'll be anything substantial left in the files that are yet to be released? Because we have had, obviously, we've seen some emails, some documents come out before.
You know, maybe I'm just a little bit cynical than most people. I don't think this is the end of the discussion. I don't think we're going to see these whole files. I really don't. I think this is going to end up going down in history like the Kennedy files, and it's unlikely that we'll ever see all of this in its entirety. I just get that feeling from watching Republicans on the Hill that they've been focusing very sort of specifically on the exemptions and the exceptions, the national security exception, some of the other limitations in the actual piece of legislation, things for ongoing investigations, for example. And I think you might see in the next 30 days that if there's any disclosure of documents, it's certainly not going to be full. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but I know a little bit about Washington.
Well, that could open it up to a whole lot more conspiracy theories about what really happened, what happened to Jeffrey Epstein when he died, if it really was suicide. Do you think there's something sinister behind that, though? Is there someone that they want to protect? It's just a case, in your view, of not interfering with national security and ongoing investigations.
It's certainly not anything sinister, Caroline, as I've talked about many, many times. I can't imagine there's anything really bad about Donald Trump in the file, because if there were, the Democrats who had this file for 4 years would have put it out. I just don't think the federal government is capable of making true and full disclosure. And even if they put out a lot of stuff, will it satisfy everybody? I don't know. Keep in mind, most of the best evidence available, real hard evidence, is that Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone in killing John Kennedy, but 60% of the country still thinks there was somebody else involved, more than 60 years later. So it's going to be a fascinating sort of experiment in the American process. Can the federal government, regardless of who's in charge, really fully disclose something? We're going to see here in the next 30 days.
Yeah, we certainly will. I talked at the top of the show about the split in the MAGA movement, with Marjorie Taylor Greene labelled a traitor by the president over her long-time calls for the files to be released, and then Greene hitting back at Trump's comments. Mick, do you think this is a concern, what seems to be happening among the base?
No, I think it's limited to not only to Epstein. I think it's limited to Marjorie Taylor Greene, and it wasn't just her comments about the Epstein files that got Donald Trump where he is in their relationship. She was on television here. She was an entirely different sort of person, different politician, different messaging. Donald Trump is still very much the leader of the Republican Party, certainly much more so than Marjorie Taylor Greene. I think she's about to learn some very difficult lessons about who really is the big name in the MAGA movement, and it's not she. So, look, I didn't expect to see this falling out. It happened, again, very, very rapidly, almost as rapidly as the Epstein files themselves, as that piece of legislation. But at the end of the day, I still think Donald Trump has a stranglehold on the leadership of the MAGA movement, as he should. He built this. What will be interesting to see, Caroline, is what happens next. Will there be other things that come down the line that members of the Republican Party are willing to break from the president on? Will they break with him on tariffs? Will they break with him on, say, military action in Venezuela? That will be the interesting thing to see. Is Epstein an outlier and just one thing, or is this part of a trend? But I don't think Marjorie Taylor Greene tells us much about any of that.
Okay, well, it certainly will be interesting to see. I want to get your thoughts now on the president hosting Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman in Washington this week. It's caused a lot of controversy, especially since US intelligence said that the Saudis approved the murder of Washington Post journalist Jamal Khashoggi. Mick, I'm going to give my thoughts on this later in the show, but do you think the criticism that's been aimed at the president over this in the past week has been warranted?
No, I don't. I think if there's any criticism, it was the one line that Trump used that said that MBS didn't know anything about it. I think our own intelligence indicates that's inaccurate. But that one line aside, I have absolutely no difficulty with the president treating Mohammed bin Salman as the crown prince of Saudi Arabia. Look, this is the real world, Caroline. This is realpolitik, and it is in the United States national interest to have a good relationship with Saudi Arabia. And that means having a good relationship with the crown prince. Does that sound horrible and it sound terrible about you're ignoring what happened to Jamal Khashoggi? Maybe, but that is the way the world works. Let's not lose sight of the fact that Joe Biden went to Saudi Arabia to meet with MBS. And oh my goodness, he did a fist pump instead of a handshake. Does that really make a difference? No, this is an absolutely critical country, has been for a long time, is even more important now that Iran has been neutered by the military action the American government took in the last several months. So this is a critical part of peace and prosperity in the Mideast. Are they difficult people to work with? Look, a lot of folks around the world are. That is the real world. And I think Donald Trump was just recognizing that and extending the courtesies that he did this week to the Saudi Arabian leadership.
Look, I mean, he is the deal maker, and this is the art of making the deal, isn't it? Do you think that he managed to get what he was after in this meeting? Because he was hoping, I know, that he would be able to get Saudi Arabia to sign up to the Abraham Accords, normalize relationships with Israel. They did announce a lot of investment in America. Do you think it was a success, the visit?
I do. And I recognize that the president's coming under some criticism for not getting a firm commitment on the Abraham Accords, for example, not getting firm written agreements on the investments. I do think he's going to get that. Keep in mind, the sale of the F-35s is a big deal. And it's not going to happen tomorrow. It's going to take some time. So there'll be a chance to sort of feel each other out as we go forward on how the progress is being made on recognizing Israel, entering into the Abraham Accords, progress being made on investment and so forth. You're not going to see this happen overnight, but I do think it was very successful. It's hard to describe it as anything but. Like you said, the president wanted a deal. He got a deal. Just because you don't see the payoff on that in the next 24 hours doesn't mean this wasn't a huge success for the Trump administration. Okay,
well, that should be good news because we want there to be peace in that region, and we want a good relationship, as you point out, with that country. The president has also confirmed he is set to meet New York Mayor-elect Zohran Mamdani tomorrow at the White House. And he's labeled him again the communist mayor of New York. Mamdani spoke to the media about his upcoming meeting with the president. Take a look.
No matter what someone describes me as or how someone wants to speak about these policies, the important thing is that they may care about the city. And I know that with the president, there is an opportunity to make the case for New Yorkers, and I will make that case to the president. I'll make that case to anyone in this country that can help New Yorkers.
Mick, Trump has had a lot of harsh words to say about Mamdani, but how do you think their meeting will go when they actually come face to face?
It's fascinating, and I have no idea. And I know a little bit about Donald Trump, but I think that's part of the point, Caroline. What is Trump, the best I've ever seen at? Creating a media buzz, creating a narrative, creating messaging, creating news. He's a news-making machine. I did not expect this one. I'll be perfectly honest with you. I'd never expected him to invite Zohran Mamdani, the self-described socialist mayor of New York, into the Oval Office to have a discussion. It could be backslapping and can't we all get along? It could be worse than the Zelensky meeting. I have no idea. I do know this. I know why it's happening. Donald Trump cares a great deal about New York City. I think folks, especially overseas, don't realize he is a New York City boy. He cares about the city where I'm sitting right now. And he wants to know more about this Mamdani guy, and he wants to meet him face to face. So look, anything literally could happen. They could end up shaking hands and hugging it out and working hand in hand going forward. I have no idea. They could end up in fisticuffs. That's a little bit of an exaggeration, but not much. It's going to make for must-see television, which my guess is why it's happening.
Yep, you're absolutely right. It will be fascinating to see, and that unpredictability is why we love watching Trump so much. Mick Mulvaney, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks, Caroline.